Let's get this show started. Now, good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning to this beautiful Tuesday. Welcome again to the Aruba Post Corona, the new normal series of Zoom presentation organized by the University of Aruba and hosted by the Center for Lifelong Learning. For those who don't know me as yet, my name is Deborah Alexander, and I'm the coordinator of the Center for Lifelong Learning here, enabling growth within the Aruban community. Today we have another very interesting presentation, and at the end of this presentation there will be a Q&A moment, but I would like to just draw your attention to the following slide. So Edward. Yes, thank you. So please mute your microphones, keep them muted. If it's correct, you should not be able to unmute it, but please keep it muted. Please provide your questions via the Q&A box. There are two chat options at the bottom of your screen. One is Q&A and one is chat. Chat you can use for general observation, but please really use the Q&A box for providing your questions, and we will provide the answers live. You can see us nicely on the screen. Use speaker view, looks better. And as we all know, for the past few weeks, we've been having problems with internet over the entire island. So have some patience with the internet, with us in discovering how Zoom and everything works. So what's the topic for today, Edward? Interesting topic. Life and commerce in a post-COVID-19 era. And we see that we have with us E.M. Erasmus. Now, his name is Edward Erasmus. And Edward is, maybe for many of you, no unknown person, but I would like to consider him a very dear colleague. He is a part-time lecturer at the University of Aruba. He works for the Faculty of Accounting, Finance and Marketing, and he also works for the Faculty of Arts and Science in the Organizational Governance and Management program. Sometimes I think this is his full-time job, but no, he does have another job. And he's head of operations of Free Zone Aruba, which I believe he has been doing for many, many, many years, and with lots of pleasure. And next to that, I don't know where he has time, next to being a dad of, I believe it's 4 girls, Edward? He runs a very successful consulting and training business. And here is his link, and you can click on it to find out what all he offers. So without further ado, Edward, I would like to give the floor to you.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Deborah, for the introduction. And also thank you. It's a pleasure for me, of course, to be presenting some thoughts this morning with the audience on also related to the topic of the Aruba Post Corona, what to expect, what can we do, how can we prepare for this. And before we start, I would like to just quickly do a little survey. So let's poll the audience and ask, and I need your help with this, Deborah, to pull up the survey. So we can just get an impression of who's in the audience. Of course, we will have lots of material for everyone, but it would be interesting to look at, to have an impression of who exactly is in the audience. So we're going to give it a few more seconds. You can go ahead and vote. You only have one option. So the options are business, nonprofit, government, academic, if you're a student or other. So what's your background? It's just important for us. Just a few more. Okay, I think we have the results. Okay, we have 37% from the business sector, 7% from non-profit, 11% government, 33% academic, no students. Oh, that's strange. And others, so 11%, it would not fall in the other category. So thanks everyone once again for joining. As I mentioned, I hope I have some thoughts and information to share with all audiences, everyone who is in the room. So let's get started. And here's the program for today. So I would like to share with you what exactly we will be discussing. Just a quick outline. So I will first do a quick assessment. I think it has already been discussed in many other presentations, in many other webinars. Let's just have a look at the economic damage that was caused by COVID-19. We will also look at the context of the new normal, which is a term that you might have heard over the past few days, past few weeks. What exactly is a new normal? Also a glimpse into the new normal. What are the things we can expect after the reopening of the economy? I will briefly discuss the donut economics, which I believe is a good setup also for the final part, which is discuss the 5 operational Ps that companies, organizations that will need to embrace, will need to implement in order to be successful in a post-COVID-19 era. So it's a very busy agenda, so I hope we can go through it and it might be clear for everyone. Just very important, of course, we already know that COVID-19, which is considered a novel coronavirus, is not only considered a health crisis in large proportions, it's a worldwide problem, but it's also considered as an imminent restructuring of the global economic order. Right? We will expect changes, quick changes to happen, drastic changes, some negative and some positive, of course, on economic levels. So we need to prepare for that as well, right? And also Aruba, as we know, has also been hit by COVID-19, and we've been dealing with this for a few weeks or months already. Just to give it an impact of the drastic consequences of the drastic massive impact on the economy, just to give you a few numbers. The first quarter for 2020 does not look so good for many large continents, countries, European countries, China, South Korea, even the United States. They are expecting drops in the GDP, and for the second quarter as well. So nobody knows what's going to happen in the third or fourth quarter. But for now, we can see that the impact has been huge, has been big on the GDP. Also for Aruba, you might have seen these numbers already. The economic impact has been drastic. We are projecting a drop in the GDP by 44.4%. So these are the preliminary assessments that were done by the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs. Also, the projected budget surplus that was 46 million, which was presented to Parliament, which was not discussed in Parliament, but just a few weeks after when the pandemic hit, a new budget had to be created, and the projected deficit is now 1.3 billion. The financing needs of the government is estimated to be 1.6 billion. It is subject to revision right now. And also the debt to GDP is projected to be at 104%, which is of course not a really positive, positive expectation for a small country as Aruba. So the central bank did a survey conducts a survey among businesses on the island, and we can see already in the first quarter the expectations for economic outlook are not so good. So basically the business perception index, which at 100 would mean that it's neutral, right? There's no negative or no positive outlook, and anything over 100 would be positive. Anything under 100 would be negative. And we can see that in the first quarter of 2020, it contains the COVID-19 factor in the numbers in the business perspective or expectations for the market. Yeah, and globally we can expect that COVID-19 it is considered already the highest threat to the global economy since the financial crisis of 2007, 2008. But we can expect it to be even worse than that. We can expect it to surpass the damage that was caused by the financial crisis on a global scale. Just to discuss pandemics and economic uncertainty, this chart shows you the based on analytics, big data analytics projection, or let's say estimates have been made of what the world pandemic index, uncertainty index would be for COVID-19. And looking over the past few years, of course, we've had pandemics, right? Remember the SARS in the early 2000s, which was not that drastic as we are experiencing right now. We've had the avian flu, the swine flu, and even the Ebola outbreak, but nothing compares to the coronavirus of now, 2000. That started at the end of 2019 and now in 2020 which is having a huge impact. Yeah, what is the World Pandemic Uncertainty Index? It's basically assessing companies have been surveyed, and it is the attempt to address or to assess how companies expect to react, or what are the expectations in terms of economic developments, and what is the damage to their business. And as we can see, the uncertainty index for COVID-19, this was an assessment done in February 2020. We can see that it's at 150, which is way higher than the SARS of 2002 and 2003. And of course, what we know is uncertainty can be translated into what we call unquantified risk. You cannot plan for it, you cannot quantify it, you cannot prepare for it. And of course, that's the reason why we have seen the numbers on the stock markets over the past few months. In March, there was a huge nosedive, and of course, it has been stabilizing somewhat over the past few weeks, but still the uncertainty is great, it's big, because we don't know how the pandemic will end. And that brings us to the next question. And the WHO normally has 3 scenarios for pandemics, and basically one of them is the first one would be considered the positive, or the best scenario, which is that the virus will gradually die out and completely disappear. Just maybe think in terms of the SARS of 2002 and 2003, which disappeared at some point. The second one would be that the virus will fade out for now, and then will resurge after reopening, and it will trigger seasonal waves, what we call the second or the third wave, right? So we can have huge ups and downs in numbers, infection numbers. Or the third scenario would be that we need to accept that the virus will not die out, but it will stay around. But due to knowledge, new information, enforced physical distancing measures, and strict health codes, we might be able to contain it at acceptable norms, in the sense that we might see infections, but still we will be able to contain it and live with it, with COVID-19 among us. And that brings us to the next question to the audience, and I would like to ask Deborah to help me with this as well. Just a question for everyone. You have a few options. You can just do a vote, or you do not have to vote, or you don't have to have an opinion. So what do you think will happen in the coming months? Will the virus completely vanish, or do you expect seasonal waves, a second wave, or do you expect us humans to be able to control the virus, or be able to, let's say, enforce different measures in order to contain it? Or the fourth option is you have no opinion. That's also fine. So I'm going to give you a few more seconds to vote, and then we will show you the results. Okay, a few more. All right, Deborah, I think we can show the results. So this is it. You can now see the results. Okay, so 14% thinks that the virus will die out. 52% that expect a new wave, so a second or a third wave, and 34% expect us to be able to contain the virus. But actually, yes, yeah, that's very interesting. Thank you all for voting again. Yes, the WHO recently announced that the expectation is that the virus will not disappear. So, and has suggested to prepare for, let's say, the scenario number 2, which is a second wave, or a scenario number 3, in which we can prepare for the virus and need to enforce different measures in order to control it. So yeah, so thank you all for voting. So let's move on for that's interesting insights from the audience. So the question is, when can we go back to the normal? Yeah, that's the question people ask, and that's the question that it's on everybody's mind. When can we go back to normal? When can we move on with our normal lives? Well, fact is that when this is over or not over, we will have to prepare to go to another type of normal, which is already we can see it in the news, not only in Aruba but also worldwide, that many countries are preparing for a reopening, but and not to go back to a different type of approach, a different type of what we call the new normal. And so the question is, what can we expect in the new normal? Well, the good news is that we're not going to expect or see a lot of new things, but mostly we will see these 5 elements that will remain in force, maybe at least temporary, and some of them might be for a longer period. The first one is what we call physical distancing. Notice that I use physical distancing instead of social distancing, because social distancing I believe is not the right term to use. Physical distancing means that we need to maintain a distance, mostly in the workplace, but also in terms of being in public spaces. We need to maintain some kind of distance, which people say it should be 1.5 meters or 2 meters distance. Also, what we can expect in the next normal is that businesses will continue to carry out transactions with limited contact. That means that you will have to minimize contacts with customers, with clients. So we might see a lot of pickup and delivery of products and services. Third one is the strict border controls. If you follow the news, also in the news in Aruba, of course, airports are preparing for the new normal, for people to start traveling again. We might see a lot of measures being taken at the border. Remote work. The expectation is that people who currently are working at home or had to be forced to work at home might see an interesting development in this, in the sense that remote work will become a new trend. And finally, health and sanitation protocols are for sure things that will be enforced in the coming weeks and even months, that we will see a lot of protocols, a lot of documents and lists or posters or anything in that sense that would refer to people to stick to strict sanitation protocols. And also one thing that we can observe is that the economic and political pressure is currently forcing economies to open worldwide. Also, we see that happen in Aruba. I must say that Aruba is ready for reopening, but most countries are not. In some countries, we can still see surging numbers in infections, and still there's a lot of pressure for either the federal government or state governments to open the economy. And of course, the reopening will happen with limited and what we call conflicting knowledge on how things will turn out. Nobody can predict right now. Nobody knows exactly what is going to happen with when the economy reopens, when people start moving again in the streets, and businesses start to conduct transactions. So we don't know yet what's going to happen. In Aruba, the new normal refers to 2 levels. Reopening is, of course, what we can see currently is that businesses are restoring operations. Government is lifting restrictions bit by bit in phases, and we can see different types of industries opening for the local community, for our local, for our own people. And the second part of reopening is, of course, when the borders will open for inbound flights. And that's when we need to be very vigilant, and we need to prepare for what we call the new normal, because we can expect more import of COVID-19 cases. I'm going to come back to that later. So just talking about the new normal, as I mentioned, I don't really like this term that much. And it's a strange term, and sometimes it can even trigger negative connotations. Just a reflection. This is my 11-year-old daughter, and just a few days ago she asked me, okay, what exactly is a new normal? Because she hears it on the TV, looking at the news, and constantly government officials are referring to what we call new normal. And I tried to explain to her that, so it's basically going into a period of drastic changes. Of course, we were in a lockdown, schools were closed, but now things will have to reopen, but the things will not be the same again. And she posted a very interesting question. And she asked me, okay, have we been through these adjusted normals before? And that got me to reflect a little bit, at least in my lifetime. And I said, yes, of course, we've had these normals we had to adjust before. And just a brief reminder for people who have experienced it. And in the 1980s, we've had the HIV/AIDS pandemic in the mid-80s. Also a period of a lot of uncertainty while HIV was spreading very quickly around the world. Everybody thought, we're all gonna die and everybody will get infected. So, and at some point we learned to adjust, right? We found out more about the virus, the HIV virus, and how to contain it. So, and at that point we had to adjust as well. Also in 2001, I can use as a good example, the same thing when the 9/11 terrorist attacks happened, right? People would thought that at that point, yeah, we will not be able to travel again, go to the US again, because they want to contain, prevent all terrorists to come in. So we had to adjust at that time as well. Of course, it costed billions of dollars to implement or to restructure the homeland security and to come up with new measures at the airports. But at some point we had to adapt. Way before 9/11, we had many more facilities. It was easier to travel, and well, basically after 9/11, we had to adjust to be present, to be 3 hours before the departure for the security checks, sometimes double security checks. But we adjusted, right, to these new normals. And 2008, after the financial crisis, the same thing, right? We thought we couldn't trust banks. And we will lose all our money, or you cannot save, or you cannot trust financial institutions. Of course, there were lots of reform. Maybe not so much impact for society, but there were some changes, and we had to adjust as well to the post financial crisis period. But mind you, it's very important to address it. COVID-19 will require massive adaptation. It's not to be compared, of course, to these normals that we've had before. And these changes will have to take place on a macro, meso, and micro levels. So we will have to adapt. We will have to be able to adjust to this new normal. So what can we expect in the new normal? I'm going to share with you some thoughts, and some of them you might see them already in place or being enforced. And just a little disclaimer, so just a little note, is the content is based on my own personal views. And also some of them are derived from measures that we are already currently experiencing. International trends and operational best practices, what is being published right now. And you can see how companies, businesses are preparing on a global scale. Some of them might be speculative in nature, and of course, I do not pretend to present solutions. Don't think I'm gonna present solutions for all problems for all issues this morning, unfortunately. So the first one is traveling and tourism. Last week, my colleague Jim Happel already addressed the tourism for Aruba and what can we expect. So I'm just gonna address or highlight some other things. One observation is that traveling will be even more unpleasant in the sense that there will be more checks, more measures taken at airports. Already many airports are discussing using thermal imaging cameras to capture people with high temperature, right, with fever, in order to try to isolate or prevent them from to travel. There's also the talks about taking a rapid COVID-19 tests. There's also that we can expect to happen. Also, one thing in terms of traveling, we can expect corporate travel to be very limited. So only when necessary, in the sense that people going to conventions or going out for meetings, they're gonna skip that for now and move over or prefer to, let's say, use teleconferencing techniques or technologies in order to attend, let's say, meetings or conferences. Certificate of immunity will also be something interesting that will be is going to be discussed, is on the discussion, is people traveling to certain destinations must prove that they are either they took what we call the COVID-19 vaccine, which is not yet available. But when it reaches that point, we can expect some countries to require that, or people who have been infected and can show that they've recovered. They can also use it as some kind of certificate of immunity. But for now, we don't know yet how that's going to develop. So we can expect a restricted type of tourism. Mass tourism will not happen in the short term. In the sense of this year or the next year, we cannot expect tourism to happen on a massive scale. So it will be very restricted. One of them is because hotels will also be very careful in accommodating tourists. So they will probably have prefer a lower occupancy rate. And also we can expect regulated use of hotel property in the sense that, as a guest, you cannot access all properties at all times. So that's something that we need to look at. The second change that we can expect, or we are already seeing happening, is remote work, working from a distance. And people who are currently working at home will probably experience this even after the pandemic is over. Will have the option to continue working from home. And this will have huge impact, of course, on company culture, right? How do you lead these types of people? Of course, I'm referring to office work or administrative type of work, where you only need a computer and access to the server of the company and do your work. Also, challenges for ICT technology and teamwork. How do you keep a team together when they work from a distance? Also, service professionals will see a change in the way they conduct businesses. Probably they will not be able to access physical buildings that easily of their customers, so they might have to continue providing these services from a distance, right, using teleconferencing technologies. And finally, we will also expect accelerated changes in government, in public services, which might be positive in the sense that we can expect e-government processes to be introduced, in the sense that you can order or pay a lot of things or declare a lot of things online instead of standing in long lines. We've seen that already with the tax department. They had to change very quickly in order for people to submit declarations online. We can expect that to happen in many government organizations as well. Yeah, one controversial topic is education and learning. I must say that this is a huge challenge because it triggers agglomeration. Yeah, schools by definition requires people to be in groups in classes. So students, or we can expect schools to come up with limitations or with some kind of solution in terms of limiting the groups that will attend schools for certain hours per week. And so lecturers and teachers will have to recur to what we call digital conferencing or learning platforms in order to continue facilitating education. This will be a huge challenge because not everyone is ready for it. And of course, right now we cannot speak about distance learning. What we experience is crisis teaching, in the sense that we had to switch abruptly. But hopefully there's some planning and some preparations for it, because we can expect, and if you can see, many other countries worldwide are also discussing how to move certain parts of the learning program to online platforms. So that will be a challenge. Preparing lecturers and teachers to engage students using digital technology it's not easy. I've done it as well as a lecturer, applying these audio and video techniques to engage students. It's a totally different approach than face-to-face lecturing. And also innovation in retail and entertainment-related industries, we will see that happen. Coronavirus, of course, is now a huge threat for the entertainment industry. Lots of creative industry activities are under pressure. Think about music concerts, events, theme parks, or theaters, anything in that sort that requires people to attend in large groups. That's a huge issue. That's a huge problem, and will remain a problem. And one important element is that innovation is key. Innovation in these types of industries is a must. Companies in Aruba, they need to come up with new business models, new approaches. So it should be either product or service innovation, can be process innovation. So anything that has to do with delivering products and services need to change. And also paradigm innovation is to reassess your complete business model and try to fit your, let's say your business or your activities into a new set of context. And I'm gonna show an example in a few minutes. Brick and mortar retailers, we have a lot of retailers on the island who are going through difficult times. They need to come up with new techniques, new ways to focus on customer experience, develop a new way to enhance customer experience. And as I mentioned, when it comes to distribution channels, you need to think or invest in what we call delivery and pickup, because this will remain in force for a long time. As I mentioned, in the terms of professional sports or even large group events, a survey was done a few weeks ago, I think, and this is in the U.S. It was just to show you how people are hesitant to attend these large events. 72% will not feel safe to attend an event with large groups because of the fear of infection of the coronavirus. As I mentioned, that's a huge challenge. Now, speaking of paradigm innovation, this is a typical approach in terms of paradigm innovation. The movie industry, and we see this happening around the world. Drive-ins are reopening, and in Aruba, there's also the option or there's the consideration to reopen the drive-in because it, let's say, as of course not as crowded as shown in this picture, but we can see drive-ins as option, as solution for people to attend and watch movies, right, in the comfort of their car. And right now we have better technologies, better sound equipment, lighting equipment, so you can enhance the experience just by changing again from closed venue to open air, right? So that's a typical way how you can innovate. There's nothing out of the box. It's just changing the paradigm and changing the business model. And also, furthermore, for retailers, I would say that it's important for them to focus on their business models as well. We can expect, and I've seen this happen in Aruba as well, right? Companies who present DIY product kits. When people were in lockdown or in shelter in place, they cannot go out. So you can order, just an example, you can order a box and you can prepare your meal at home. So with all instructions, which is a typical DIY kits. And you can see other retailers can try these types of things as well. Also, it's important to enhance the virtual experience for customers, and e-commerce is very important nowadays. You have to be online. You need to have a digital presence, because when there's a lockdown and if a second wave of infection happens and we need to limit again people moving, mobility of people, you need to rely on e-commerce techniques in order to keep facilitating, keep providing products and services. And there's a lot of technology out there, easy technology and cheap to use. Just for example, you can enhance experience by introducing what we call the virtual dressing room, right? So you can list your products online and people can try them on basically by uploading their picture, and so you can see or just kind of see how it fits, right? In terms of you can even do this for dresses. I've seen these types of technologies being used for people try on dresses without being physically present in the store. So finally, the squeaky clean and spotless economy. We will experience a very strange thing. People will not be focused, customers will not be focused anymore on speed of service, but they will be more obsessed with cleaning, and things will be you need to show as a company that you comply with all of the protocols sanitation, and things like that. So the promise will be more thorough, more often cleaning, to position yourself as a brand. And we can see that as well. Aruba has launched the health and happiness code, and which is a certification. Is very important because customers will want to see this in place, right, in your store, in your business. So make sure you pay attention to this. And also another trend that we can expect is that increase in contactless interaction with equipment, devices, and everyday stuff we use, right? Entry doors will change. You don't have to touch the door anymore, right? Automatic doors or bathroom faucets, the elevator button will be replaced. All of these things will be replaced on the long term. Of course, they require investments, but we can expect these trends to happen. Okay, so now let's discuss very quickly the donut economics, and then I will move to the final part of the presentation. As we mentioned, or has been broadcasted, the donut economics is a key element in our discussions, in our webinars focused on the post-COVID-19 period. And just to touch base, and different speakers, of course, will address different sections of the donut economics. In my presentation, I just want to present the 7 key areas that Dr. Raworth has been presented as changes in what we say the new economics for current times. And so I'm very quickly gonna go over that. So one of the key areas is the goal. Compared to the old economics, so 20th century economics, the goal always used to be focused on the GDP, the gross domestic product. So whenever production and income increases, that's a good thing. And the change in the donut economics is that we need to focus on the donut, and that means that, which is the safe and just space for humanity, which is the area where this let's say the ideal area where it exists for us to live, right, as humans. The second one is the big picture, and the big pictures most of the times in the 20th century economics is what we call self-contained market, is that the market can regulate itself. So the supply and demand will solve all problems, and we've learned that is not true. In the donut economics, we speak about an embedded economy. That means that economy is not is not separate from ecology and society. So we need to place that at, let's say, keep that in balance, economy together with society and nature. Yeah, human nature is also one of the elements. Yeah. The old-fashioned way of thinking about economics is that what we call the rational economic man is that humans are rational beings focused on maximizing profit, and instead the new model should focus on what we call the more adaptable, socially adaptable humans, in the sense that humans have other interests than just making money, right? We have other, we are not that egocentric as is pretended to be. Systems is then moving from what we call the mechanical equilibrium to a more dynamic complexity. Yeah, mechanical equilibrium is that economics used to be based a lot of on models, yeah, simplified models, and economists try to force these models in practice. And in reality, that is not true. We need to accept that our reality is more complex, and so we need to consider the context when considering developing, designing a new economy. That design, the idea that growth will even up again, that means, in that sense, it means that equality will be generated through growth, yeah? Income equality in society. That is not true. So the trickle-down economics does not work. So the new approach would be a more distributive type of economics, in the sense that we need to focus on creating a more wealth distribution in society. Number 6 is creation, and it's moving from growth. We'll clean it up again. So it's a linear type of economy, need to move to a more circular type of economy, which was what we call regenerative type of design. And finally, growth, right? We need to step away from the idea of growth addicted, right? So whenever the GDP grows, it's, hey, we've scored, right? Then we need to move to a more what we call growth agnostic. So we need to introduce other metrics to measure success when it comes to economics. Yeah, that in a nutshell is to highlight the 7 key areas of the donut economics. So now let me share with you the 5 essential operational P's in order to survive as not just as a business or any type of organization, could be profit or non-profit, or even thrive in the post-COVID-19 era. So I'm going to share with you everything. All of them starts with the P. So that's why I call them the 5 Ps. And the first one is, of course, is the protocols. As I mentioned, you cannot escape it. Yeah, health and sanitation protocols will be essential for every business nowadays. And the second one is also important, to focus on employee and customer health and safety. And this is not just focused on COVID-19 issues, but also consider everything, right? Now that you are going into a new economy and moving into a new context, a new normal, make sure that everything is safer for either for your employees and also for your customers. So on every level, make sure you have health and safety protocols in place. The second one is what we call processes. Invest in process innovation. Yeah, I would suggest if you want to invest, if you want to restart and need to invest in your business, I would suggest you to invest in anything that enhances customer experience and anything that would boost online presence. As I mentioned, it's super important nowadays to be present online. Either you need to have a website, or you need to have a payment system, or you need to have an active social media platform, because you need to be able to reach your customers. And also make sure that your processes are inclusive by design. What do I mean with this? Whenever you introduce new processes, new changes, make sure that you consider all of your target groups. Just an example, now that we're moving very quicker into more digital payments and digital approaches, some groups, right, elderly population, for example, have been experiencing a lot of setbacks. For example, when they need to go to pay utility bills, they cannot, in the early days when the pandemic hit, everything was closed, right? So they couldn't access, and so everyone tells them, yeah, you need to pay online. But we need to be aware that not all of these target groups are able to pay their bills online. So you need to be able to come up with new solutions, new approaches in order to enhance, as I mentioned, the customer experience. We have seen these really creative solutions. Web, for example, has like a mobile truck where you can go. So they drive around and you can pay, right? With your ATM card. So these are fabulous solutions for processes. And number 3 is partnership. Make sure, in Aruba we have many companies, many let's say wholesalers who have a lot of connections worldwide, which is positive. We have connections with Europe, South America, the US, and even even Asian countries, which is very positive. Now moving forward, it's very important to reestablish all of these supply chains and all of these relationships, because as I mentioned, if a next pandemic hits, of something happens, you need to be able to continue conducting business and import the right products that we need. Alliance with local supply chains is also important. In this, right now, I would suggest local companies to work together. This is super important, because just an example, I've seen companies shifting to deliver products, right? So, but instead of working with somebody else who's already good in delivery, they start the delivery process themselves. And then they notice that they couldn't do it, or it's too hard, or they don't have the staff or people available to do it. So then the execution is not right. So I would suggest, why don't you create an alliance with a delivery company, right? So instead of you trying to build it from scratch. So that's what we call a local supply chains. And also retain competition. Now moving forward, it's very important to see, if you have a competitor, are there any ways that you can work together to collaborate in order to deliver value to customers? Number 4 is performance. Performance is super important, right? Is to measure a success, right? So now I would say it's the best opportunity to transition to more sustainable practices, waste management, energy management. All of these things are super important to reconsider, to reassess in the new economy. Also reconsider financial performance. I would say, just as the donut economics suggests, it's not just about measuring profits or using profit as a measure for success, But also take into account customers or your internal employees. So all of these things are super important to consider in performance. A strict control of costs will remain. Companies will need to be able to manage costs and finally go bold and go home. What I mean with this is at this point, when it comes to performance, you should try out new things. You should not be afraid, right? As I mentioned, innovation will be key. You should not sit and wait. And there are many examples in your industry out there of companies who have been very creative in creating new value for customers. Make sure you consider those as well. And number 5 is purpose, right? Purpose means that you need to reassess your mission. Why do you exist as a company? So you need to deeply reassess this. Now moving forward, it's time for you as an organization with your team, depends on how big your company is, to reflect on this. Also reflect how you make social impact. What is your contribution to society? And finally, consider a stakeholder approach. Stakeholder approach in the sense that we should be able to keep in mind that we have different other stakeholders than just shareholders. And so you need to consider those into your equation as well, right, when it comes to purpose. So I would like to end with this. It's very important to consider that we as human beings, we have incredible capabilities. We are adaptive beings and we are creative. And based on this, I'm pretty sure that we will be able to make a big change, make a huge impact, and are able to face the new normal. Because we are natural inventors, and we look constantly for new things, right? Make things faster, easier, better. So I'm pretty sure we will find a way when it comes to the new normal. We will fit in, and we will even thrive. And I would like to suggest, instead of using the term new normal, I prefer to use the term better normal now moving forward, because I'm pretty sure we can do things way better. The normal that we had before COVID-19 was not the best approach, so we have an opportunity now to go to something way better than this. Thank you all so much. If you have any questions, you can either contact the university, or you can send me an email, or do you want a copy of the slides? Of course, I can send them to you, or Deborah can also facilitate the slides to those interested. So Deborah, back to you.
Thank you, Edward. I just want to say it was a squeaky clean and spotless presentation, because that stood with me during the presentation, really spotless on. And with that, I'd like to ask, someone just mentioned in the chat that, you know, it is such a comprehensive presentation and that they recommend you write an academic paper to be published for mass consumption of this knowledge. Yes. So I think, okay. And as you can see, you know, people really appreciate the new term, better normal. So they're definitely going to copy that and use that now. Oh, so thank you again. Yes. Thank you again for that very interesting presentation. And we do have some questions, Edward, that I'll have you, you know, answer live. So given the anticipated slow recovery of tourism worldwide, and in Aruba specifically, what are possible economic opportunities in this crisis from a donut economics perspective?
Well, that's a good question. Right now, yeah, what's more important now is we need to replace tourism dollars. So any activity that would be able to, what we call tourism dollars that we've lost, should be the focus. And in that sense, I can just share that there are many plans currently being developed by the government, the different committees. And one of them, of course, is to come up with what we call export-driven type of activities in terms of services, right? What are we good at in terms of services? But also in products, in manufacturing products. So those are certain types of ideas. Right now, I cannot say there's a clear-cut approach, but I think to replace the tourism dollars, it will require different types of industries to be developed and to, let's say, to be deployed. The only challenge is that it takes a long time, right? Switching from industries and to develop an industries that require a lot of investment. But I think if we work together, we are able to do that. We are able to turn it around.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer. How realistic is it to expect tourism to contribute significantly to lowering Aruba's new colossal debt? So a big, huge
Yeah.
debt that we have.
That ties into the first question indeed.
Yeah.
Tourism dollars will not be in the same volume as we expected in the, let's say, the pre-corona period. Recovery will be slow, and tourism will be slow. And as we know that some countries still have restrictions for traveling. And Aruba also has to be selective in terms of visiting number of let's say, of tourists. So that will be the biggest challenge. I think in the short term, we will not be able to pick up the loss. But if we move quickly, if we move swiftly and work together, I think at some point we will be able to pick up. Of course, tourism will remain an important element for our economy. We cannot say that we will replace tourism completely, but we need to figure out new other types of industries to replace what we're losing.
Thank you, Edward. So this new normal requires an incredible level of adaptation in the macro, meso, and micro level simultaneously. This is unprecedented. What mindset in terms of paradigm innovation does this require from us here in Aruba at all levels, actually?
Yeah. Yes, it requires tremendous, let's say, level of creativity. For some people, I would have to say this: for some people, crisis always generates creativity, triggers creativity, and I've seen that happen with many industries. For example, some restaurants. I'm just going to give an example. Some restaurants, right after the pandemic hit, they switched completely over to a website, and they started delivering right away because they had no time to lose, right? So the reaction of people, or the creative approach in terms of crisis is there. I see that happen, and I think we have to be, that's the mindset right now, is not thinking about, okay, I have a problem, so I'm gonna sit and wait for the government to take action, but I have a problem and I need to find ways to solve it now. And most of the times is trying to make a list. Okay, what are the 10 things I can do now, right, in order to continue delivering value? How can I reach my customers? Of course, some companies were forced in lockdown, which and to be closed. Of course, that generated a huge problem. Of course, you have no revenues, you have no income. But at some point, even when going back into to reopening, you had to prepare. You had the time to prepare for that. And I think the mindset is to be determined, not giving up easily. But as I mentioned in one of the slides, is to try anything. You need to be able to come up with a plan and see, okay, what are the things I can try? Sometimes you have nothing to lose. You need to turn around and see what are the things that you have, what other options you have in terms of new activities.
You know, before I go to the last comment of question, I mean, in what you're saying, you know, people have to be innovative. My friend and I, my best friend and I keep on making this joke that, you know, here, maybe in the Caribbean, we're talking about being innovative, but actually we're just trying to catch up with things literally that have been taking place already all over the world. As you said, something as delivery, be it in the Netherlands, America, you know, restaurants have been delivering to their clients. Stores have been providing, you know, a drop off at the home, at the post office, wherever. And when we made the joke about catching up, we actually thought of the, you know, the brand ketchup. I mean, the Libby's ketchup. Even ketchup innovated from glass to plastic a long time ago. So we promised ourselves that we would put a ketchup bottle in front of our faces every time as a reminder. It's not a matter of innovating, but we're literally just trying to catch up. The last question came, you know, and it's more an observation from, is this presentation going to be made available? I think with such a wonderful presentation and all the others that we've had before, yes, the presentation will be shared at a later date on our website and with all those who have participated. So you just have to wait a few, maybe days, weeks longer. I don't know if you have any closing comments, Edward, that you'd like to say before I close?
I'm just gonna put my email in the I think it's ua.away, right, Deborah?
Yes, www dot ua.away, as we say in Dutch.
Okay, so if you want a copy of the slides, just send me an email. I'll make sure either today or tomorrow I can send it to you. And of course, I will facilitate CLL as well a copy of the slides. So yeah, as final remark, as I mentioned, that I think we should not be afraid into moving into. Of course, we have huge challenges. I'm not gonna lie. From an economist perspective and from a business perspective, it's not gonna be easy. And even before the coronavirus, of course, Aruba had some challenges. So now the challenges are even bigger. But I don't think, or I'm pretty sure that we are all determined to make things better, to thrive in this new approach, in this new economy. And I'm pretty sure we have the people, we have yeah, of course, and we need to bring more people on the right mindset, but we have the capabilities in order to do that. I also want to thank you, Deborah, and also a thanks from the CLL. And also, this is a clear example, right? We could have chosen as a university, to sit back and wait and do nothing and say, you know what, we cannot organize lectures. And instead of doing that, we thought, you know what, let's start this webinar series and discussions with the audience. And also thanks to Juliet for coming up with the different topics and approaching the speakers to facilitate these types of lectures. So this is also type of mindset approach, is to come up with let's say, not sitting back and wait, but being proactive. And so thank you also, Deborah, for putting this, together.
Yeah, I saw two questions came in, and I don't like to have questions unanswered. So I don't know if you would, indulge in just giving two short answers to this. Sure. Do you think that the Aruban florin will devaluate?
It depends. If we stay for a long period, without or let's say the flow of currency of the dollar being out of balance, of course there are risks. Right now, we have enough reserves, and as we can see, the central bank is also taking measures in order to contain outflow of money going abroad. Of course, that cannot be withheld for a long time. But yes, there's a risk if we let's say persist of continue on a long term, that it might be a risk, it might be a problem. Definitely.
Okay. And the last one is, you spoke about the inclusive design. How do you suggest we include selected target groups in the better normal while our educational attainment level may be a concern?
I was particularly concerned about just an example, the elderly people, right, and people with disabilities. How will they be able to transition? Suppose we move in an accelerated manner into a more digital economy, government providing services online. So we need to provide internet access for everyone. That's important. Of course, Aruba has a high number of people who have internet connection, but it's still not enough. We need more access, and of course the know-how. We need to develop the accessibility to the know-how. How do you use online banking? How do you access account? What are the risks? Security issues, things like that. And even devices. We need to be able to provide devices for these target groups in order for them also to participate in a more inclusive approach. It's not easy, of course, right? The question is, should the government take care of that, or should society or nonprofits come up with initiatives? But it's something that now moving forward we need to consider very, very seriously. And also for education, by the way, we see that happen as well, right? Not all students have access to internet and access to the devices to connect, to attend lectures. So if you want to invest, we need to invest in those types of technologies.
Yeah. So thank you very much for everyone who provided their questions, and thank you again, Edward, for answering them. As Edward said, this series is the first of more to come, and we'd like to thank our colleague Juliette, who she took the initiative to approach persons. Also have to say, behind the screens I have Angie Fingal and my colleague Cherise Hoon, who are supporting this, and we hope you enjoyed the first series of Zoom presentation based on the donut economic framework. And next week we will continue. The second series will start, and tomorrow the invitation will be sent out. So please be pending for that. If you're not on our mailing list, please send us an email and we'll add you. Like that way you'll be the first to receive these invitations and many more activities that will be coming shortly. So I just want to thank you, and remember the presentation will be made available at a later date. I saw indeed in a podcast, we're thinking about that, YouTube, our website. So we're going to make sure that, these interesting presentation is shared with everyone. Thank you very much for your time. You've spent an hour engaged, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a pleasant afternoon, and keep on being lifelong learners. Take care.
Bye.